Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Paul, Spheric Reptiles, and I just wanted to just say one quick thing as we're moving. Yeah, I didn't have a video last week. I do apologize for that. And right now we're out shopping for our home. But I wanted to put out this video of when I went to Willbanks to just tour their facility again. I hadn't been there in a couple of years. Had some questions about an incubator, but just stay tuned and watch the video. Let me know what you think, and next week in the video we'll definitely be doing something special and showing you guys something different at Spheric Reptiles. So hey, hope that you enjoy it. Hey, how's it going, guys? Paul, Spheric Reptiles. I'm so excited to be coming to you today from Mike Wilbanks' spot. Willbanks, of course, we know that he's a pioneer in the ball python industry, but more than that, I just want to stop by and see exactly some of the things that he's changed right when the store opens. So I want to go in and see exactly how the store looks before anybody else can get in there. I wanted to be the first one, like it's a reptile expo, even though it's not. It's kind of like a reptile expo if I decide to buy any reptiles. But in the meantime, in between time, what I like to do is just, like I said, see exactly what the big dog is doing, and then that way we can kind of scale it. So if you're a new ball python breeder or even a small time breeder, which is anybody less than Mike, right? Let's check it out.
Phones is immediately go into selfie mode because no one wants to be jump scared looking at your own face. Like, that's
true.
I like to think I'm a solid 4, but I don't really like that either.
Well, I know I got this big belly. When I turn to the profile, that's why I wear red and black shirts, so that when I turn to the side, people can see my muscular shoulders.
Yeah, see,
and they don't see, that I've lost all of every muscle I have.
You gotta hit it with the angles. You gotta.
Yeah. At this point, I don't even care because whenever I'm going through and doing a video, I'm walking with a limp anyway. But what Mike was talking about earlier, which I didn't record, was how when you're breeding animals, a lot of the times, like, they are sub 1% on all defects, but when you're breeding your animals, you can have the husbandry, you can have every water dish cleaned, you can have everything. It's not on. You can have everything that you possibly need and still end up with an animal with a defect. It's just part of it. When you have babies, there will be defects. There will never be 100% healthy animals, but that's not your goal. Your goal is to shoot for 100%. And like I was saying outside, Willbanks is probably the largest breeder that we have in North America. But they breed not just ball pythons, they breed a lot of other animals. And to have sub 1% means that they're on top of their game when it comes to every aspect of husbandry, genetics, and that means that they're not line breeding as often either. So hey, it's something to think about.
And that's a big important thing that we go with as well, is that I'm sure you've noticed, all of our barcodes have unique animal ID underneath it. On our website, you'll see that same unique animal ID that all tracks back to Reptiscan and other internal programs, which pair up to the QR code on all our breeders, so we know who's related to who. I can functionally tell you who the grandma is of any snake in there, how many eggs were in the clutch when we expected it to hatch, when it actually hatched, how many were great and successful. All of that information is on hand immediately, and not just for the customers, because customers do like to know that stuff. I mean, I'll joke about it and be like, hey, and this is also its hatch date, so you know when to give it a birthday party. Little things like that. I mean, people do that, but
they do that.
But also, it kind of just shows the thought that should be going into it, and we'll understand that, hey, maybe Reptiscan or similar programs aren't affordable for everybody, especially if they're just starting, but keeping your information on hand and documenting heavily is always going to be good. So if something does go sideways, you understand, like, okay, this thing has refused a meal. Has it refused meals before? Is there a pattern? Is there something I compare to, like temperature drops or things like that, that I can kind of backtrack and say, oh, hey, maybe this thermostat isn't as efficient with maintaining the temperature, and it kind of has way too low of a drop too quickly, and that's usually the time that the next morning when it doesn't want to eat, or something like that, you know? So it's good to have to document absolutely everything, even if it's just a spreadsheet, even if it's a notebook, and you scribble down, like, hey, like when it comes to feeding, especially our babies, right? There's always going to be some that aren't ready to knock back a fuzzy rat immediately.
Right.
So we'll try like a hopper mouse or something like that. So we have a different symbol if it ate hops, if it ate fuzzy rat, did it regurge, did it refuse? All of that's tracked immediately right on the label for our babies, so we can know exactly what's going on with that, and it's in the system as well. So we can really keep an eye on everything that's going on with these animals to ensure that we're delivering the best quality, but also like the least stress and the best quality of life for the animals themselves.
That's true.
Because I mean, there are people. I'll never name names because that's rude, But there are people who just want to fling out snakes.
Right.
And they have minimal information for you. Certain big box stores, they'll just call them fancy animals. But,
you know who they are.
We think that having that information on hand shows the dedication that we have to our animals and to our customers, because it's a respect thing to be able to be like, hey, I can tell you everything about this animal.
Right, and then they can make a choice as to whether, if the animal is a little small, because not every animal eats readily, whether they want to take that risk or not. If it's a pet, they might still want to take that risk. If they're a breeder, they might not, but at least with the information there,
they can make that informed
decision. Right.
And even on our end, I mean, that's why people get really excited this time of year, because we're coming up to hatching season.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, last week of May, maybe first 2 or 3 weeks of June, in that neighborhood is when they kick off,
Right.
And they're like, oh, so that's when you're going to have them. I'm like, well, no. Because we want at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 or 6 weeks where we can ensure, hey, they've eaten consistently, not just like, hey, it refused one and ate one, it refused one and ate. We want to make sure they're eating consistently.
Right.
Want to make sure they're healthy, that they're shedding, that everything looks good, that for the most part it helps be handleable, but we're hands-on as part of the workflow. We understand what's going on with them.
Right.
And all of that is just to ensure that people can have the best experience. So we're tanking any potential struggle up front, so we can get them to where they need, so that people can do less Googling, less stress, and trying to figure out what's going on, and spend more time just enjoying their animal.
Right.
It's part of that whole thing. I mean, these things are going to live nowadays 30 to 35 years.
Which is crazy.
And that factors in what was going on in like the 90s and 80s, So
a lot was going on in the 90s.
So it could potentially be more as our understanding of the animals, improve. But as part of that, we want people to be geeked out day 1 and year 30,
Exactly.
And that's why I'll tell people all the time, like, they're having a hard time deciding, and it's not like, oh yeah, get this one right here. More often than not, I'm just saying, hey, look, it looks like it's kind of a tough choice for you. I'll explain our wish list system on the website, where they can add a bunch of stuff to this list and kind of compare them all on one page.
Mm-hmm.
And then be like, hey, why don't you go home, poke around. We're not going anywhere. We've been at this a long time. We're always going to be here.
Right.
Go home, poke around, like kind of narrow things down, kind of figure out how you really feel about stuff, what your price point's going to be, and then come back and we'll hit it again. And if you need to come back in a few more times, great. Like,
it's a good decision, because like I tell everybody, this will outlive any dog that you ever get. It does not require the same amount of energy, but you are going to be cleaning up poop. The one thing I wanted to add on to what he said about making sure that an animal is feeding at least 5 to 6 times is no matter what. So in here, I can guarantee you guys, it feels like it's about 65, maybe 70% humidity. It's like an ambient room temperature of about 80 degrees, which is just freaking great. But inevitably, when you get this animal home, we're talking about ball pythons in general, when you get that snake home, guaranteed you're not going to match this. So if your animal goes off food, it's always good to have that feeding schedule in hand that you already know about, so that you can know that, okay, at least this animal has had a lot of meals, and not to stress out, to give it some time to acclimate. And a lot of times people really don't do that. Give your animals some time to acclimate. So if it's 1, 2, or even 3 weeks, let them fully acclimate, and you can test them every week to see if they're willing to eat. But if they don't, as long as that water dish is in there and you see them drinking water, then you should be good.
But yeah, all that really comes and I think speaks for itself when it comes down to it. We have customers that are aggressive about bringing other customers in. We had someone that was just getting dog food from PetSmart and saw another customer buying snakes and didn't see. Was kind of insured, not something that she wanted. Like, they were okay, but it wasn't what she was looking for. And she's like, I'm about to check out, follow me. And literally brought that customer here.
Which is
she
good.
followed her on the highway and was like, hey, Mike, do you have time to help her find a snake? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay. And then she just went home and left me with this brand new customer. And you can't pay for that,
I think that's better, because like, if a lot of people, when they think about a snake, a lot of times they just don't know how far the rabbit hole goes.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you're going to get a snake, I would suggest pick a breeder. Pick one that you trust. But if you can go in, you can actually see the animals and get some backstory behind them, and actually see a lot of varieties. You can start to identify what's healthy, or more importantly, what pattern morph that you actually like, instead of just getting one. pick one that you actually like. And that's why I always tell people, whenever you come by the booth at a show, hey, you don't have to buy one from me, but just look around, take a bunch of pictures, give yourself a timeout to where you can actually look it over. Like, these snakes aren't flying like that, so you probably have time unless you're looking for a morph that's in high demand. But that high demand will demand a high price, because that's just the way it works. It's not just in snakes, it's in everything, right? So, definitely the advice that Mike is giving, the other Mike, is definitely true. So especially if you're in Oklahoma City, I don't see why you wouldn't come to Willbanks if you wanted to buy a snake right now. They have a lot of different ways you can purchase from them, but their facility is right here, and it's open to the public. Opens up at 10 o'clock, I think, Monday through Friday. And, that's pretty good, guys. I mean, I think it's good.
And if you're in Dallas, you go to Spheric Reptiles.
Oh, yeah.
And the other side of it, too, especially you mentioned the money aspect of it, too, At the end of the day, we realize at the size that we're at, we can have a very outsized impact on the hobby and on the market, So even when it comes to pricing our own animals, some people are confused, like, oh, this is $1,800, and I'm like, we sold a $64,000 snake. So like, it really is part of it. So like, if you look, especially when you have like 6-7 gene combo snakes, you're really putting your trust and your faith in the breeder that what's there is there, and trusting them. And if you saw a Lambo on Facebook Marketplace for $8K, you'd have some concerns.
Right.
Same kind of concept, but also at the same time, we have to respect the market and the other breeders. Like blue-eyed leucistics, we could price those at $50 all day. It would never impact us in the slightest bit. But we have a lot of regulars that also do breeding, and they sell on Morph Market, or they sell at local shows, and that's going to impact them as well. And we don't want to take food off people's tables. Right. It's the same reason we don't go to smaller local shows, because a lot of people supplement their income like that. A lot of people are trying to grow, and it's just a matter of respect. And so you have to really respect the market, and if something's commanding a certain price, don't get me wrong, we're competitive.
Right.
That's the name of the game. You got to be competitive.
You have to be.
But we're not gonna pull those games of a certain big box that appeared suddenly back in the '90s that put a lot of mom and pops out of business, because they can't beat those loss leaders. They can't beat those prices.
He's talking about the one that used to use California Zoological Supply. I don't know how far y'all go back, but if you know that name, you know who we're talking about.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where having respect for the people and for the hobby definitely goes a long way. And I won't say that we're not cutthroat and that we're not, we're big. It is what it is. But we also take that with a matter of trust and respect, to respect the hobby and to do what's best, not just by ourselves and our employees, because we got to pay bills too, but also the wallets of the people that are coming in. We are one of the few people that are actively trying to drive down our own prices for other supplies, going directly to manufacturers, things like that, so we can keep things affordable. I joke I can barely afford monogamy nowadays. So that's
expensive.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is. But if we can get a similar or better quality product to have it manufactured directly for us, and also drag that price down by volume, because we do have a warehouse here, we're gonna.
I saw one. Oh, this right here.
Oh yeah.
So, hey guys, if you can come here a little closer, Lynn. So we have this Wilbanks 80 right here. We have this same radiant heat panel, and to compare it to the competitors, like, this is one of the innovative things that they've done. They've started to come up with their own branding for things, and not just come up with them. Especially if we look at the incubator that they brought to North America, as well as this radiant heat panel. They've really changed the way that you can keep your reptiles or breed your reptiles, because before, the footprint of a radiant heat panel was twice the size at the least, and it dissipated heat in all directions. Now theirs is actually coated for safety. It's smaller, so you're using less energy or less of a footprint to heat the same amount of area. So this would be like a 40 watt in most of the other manufacturers, but in theirs, we're getting 80 watts at that size. And so if you think about setting up a thermostat and really being able to control that, and stacking PVC enclosures, I mean, this is just one of the innovative ways that they've improved our hobby. And it's not like I want to buy a Willbanks incubator, or I wanted to buy this radiant heat panel. It was that when I did my research, which I always tell you guys what you need to do, these were the better things that were on the market at this time. So I don't have a problem endorsing what's best for us as reptile keepers. And, the 3 times I've been to this shop, it's been, nothing but pearls. Like, I look and see, so this would be the ultimate scalability, but you got to look at the amount of work that goes into having a facility like this with employees and different animals in different areas. And their breeding rooms are just ridiculous. They have actual rooms that they breed in and not an actual incubator for their ball pythons, which is a lot. You have to be really serious if you're going to do a room size enclosure. But if you're small and you're just trying to keep, you got to think about, say, this Willbanks incubator paired up with the V300, or you could use a herpestat. They would work great. And so if you're talking about being serious about your hobby, you got to be serious about some aspects of it once you get past that pet level. And you go into collecting, like serious collecting, or breeding. I think they're the same. You got to find people that you can trust. And I would say trust me, but there's other people that have been at this game a lot that I think that you should trust as well, like Wilbanks crew, like Mike right here. They do a tremendous job, and there's not been a single time, because I have bought more than just a couple of animals from them at shows, that they've given me good advice that actually helped. And I've even bought some animals that I deem was smaller and still to this day are just like doing just great. So, you know, and that was because they gave me the full picture of the animal even then. So that's just like, we got to do better when it comes to giving people advice about reptiles and not just saying, here, buy my snake, right? It should be, you choose a snake and let me tell you about the snake. And if you don't choose to buy it, then not. But more than likely, you don't get to get as big as Mike Wilbanks has gotten without instilling that trust, and not just the general public, but also the suppliers who buy from him as well, you know, because they don't want to be burned just like you don't want to be burned as a pet keeper or a future reptile breeder. Did I say that right?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
it even scales down to, like, take our cocoa. You know, we sold other cocoa brands before, and I'll be honest, the price was inching past the mid-40s because they have a lot of people, they got to pay their paychecks, and we get that too, you know? But it gets to a certain point where it's impacting us, it's impacting our customers, we can see the economy. We're not rich folks, we're in the trenches too, you know?
Right.
Don't get me wrong, Mike pays us amazingly, but everybody's getting hit regardless of tax bracket, you know?
Right. That's
and
the economy.
yeah, and so we reached out to a manufacturer to find a ratio of cocoa styles to make into a custom block. So like ours are going to have finely ground, generally settles to the bottom that you'll see there. You'll have shreds, larger chips, and smaller chips. And what that's going to do is they all elevate each other. So obviously more surface area, the finely ground, you're going to have that spike your temperature up quickly, but it also drops quickly because you're going to have that dry top layer, you know. And for ball pythons and other like snakes, that's not necessarily great. So by having the finely ground, that'll spike your temp up quickly when you humidify it so you can keep it where it needs to be. We have the shreds, which is going to help kind of transport that moisture so it's not just the top layer that's kind of damp. The bottom layer can also percolate up. Then we have the large chip and the small chip will pull that humidity and that moisture into its structure and slowly release it out, which is going to give you that kind of flattened curve. Like they talk during COVID times, the flattened curve. You get the same thing if you're thinking of a humidity graph. That flattened curve will hold that humidity much, much longer, which in practical means everybody's busy. We got jobs, we got kids, we got what have you. And we would love to dedicate as much time as we can, but sometimes it gets difficult. So having that allows you to spend less time fiddling with things and more time enjoying your life, enjoying your animal, enjoying the setup of your enclosure, and also maintains a lower stress level in the animal if you're not having constant up and down spikes of humidity for that animal. And even then, when it comes down to like us knowing all the information, we know the pH of that cocoa, and we know that because that pH of our, at least ours, cocoa on across the board, yes, but ours specifically makes it a really rough environment for mold, fungi, things like that, bacteria to grow in. So once again, it's another one of those little things. If you use aspen has its purposes. If you have tightly dialed in temps and humidity, you know.
Right.
But one splash in the water bowl, and you notice it goes funky real quick.
Right.
Whereas cocoa can really absorb a lot of that, harder for that bacteria to take hold. It had those smells, any kind of mold, which, you know, in bacteria too. I mean, snakes are naturally predisposed to respiratory infections because they're right there in their business.
Just transfer right over.
Exactly. So having something that is a lower pH that's going to be a harder breeding ground for that is once again going to be good for your snake because it's less likely to get those respiratory infections if you're humidifying it properly. And so all those little things go into even just the most basic decision of, well, what kind of cocoa are we going to have here? And it allowed us to really bring that price down, and even occasionally just to do sales. And we're actively in conversations with the manufacturer of that to permanently bring that price down even more. Because we're buying entire shipping containers worth of that cocoa in one go.
Okay.
And that's just those little things, like I said, we're probably the only company actively driving our own prices down to try and just make things easier. How can we make things more convenient?
I mean, the more affordable you make it, the more likely people will stick with it. Like
Exactly.
if they can budget it. But if it's something that they can one-off and then they never can do it again,
What
then
good does that do?
That doesn't do any good when you have to do something repetitiously. If you buy a $1,000 water dish, then if that water dish cracks, I don't know if you buy another one, but that's my own opinion. Maybe you got $1,000 to spend on a water dish, but I don't. Well, hey, thanks a lot for talking to us.
Absolutely, man.
All right, so there was a lot of talk about a lot of stuff, right? So, again, not all of it applies to new ball python breeders, but if you're into the captive husbandry of reptiles, then hopefully it's something that you can use. There was a lot of information and a lot of wisdom that was dropped there, especially when it comes to husbandry on how the big guys do it. We have to really watch the big players in reptile breeding to see how they're doing it, because more than likely they've streamlined the process down to 3 things. So the care of the animals, the quality of the animals, and also just the maintenance of the animals. And when I say the maintenance, I mean humidities, temperatures, making sure that you're getting optimal growth rates over time, like that linear spike I always talk about. But nonetheless, hope you enjoyed the video, and if nothing else, guys, enjoy the time you spend with your reptiles, and definitely cherish and hug those that you love with, and enjoying your family. Thank you.